Hi guys, it's me, Susan. Welcome to Cruisin' with Susan. Today's Monday, October 20th. Obviously, I'm back from my vacation and have some good things to tell you about that. And let's see, medical-wise, I'll just fill you in on, since that's what this all started to be about. Cancer scan, I've got one coming up in the second week of November. And that'll be a test to see whether any cancer has recurred. I'm hoping not, but the doctor did say it's possible, and that's why we're checking. Broken hip. Feels pretty good. I'm walking. I still got some pulling and a little bit of pain here and there, so I'm signed up for a therapeutic massage this Friday, which I'm looking forward to see whether some of those muscles can be relaxed, maybe that are contributing to the leg length discrepancy and maybe to some of my a little bit of my pain. She said there might be some adhesions from the surgery, from the healing process. But really, I'm walking Jolie. I'm getting around really pretty well. I'm wearing heels to work now. Of course, I have to prove it. Wearing heels to work. Look at that giant shoe. That looks enormous. Look at it. It looks like a boat. I do have big feet. And without too much of a price to pay the next day. Let's see. So let me tell you about my trip. The central purpose of my trip was to participate in a personal growth workshop that was very exciting. There's another reason that I was down there as well, which I'll share with you in a minute. But the workshop was real exciting. It focuses on how we hold ourselves back from really connecting with other people and reaching our own goals. And those things are often intertwined. We have issues. This is the theory behind the workshop. We have issues that we developed as coping skills as children from watching the people in our family and learning about how the world works. That's the only world that we knew. And we learned some things about ourselves and about how to respond to certain situations. And we keep doing them as adults many years later without any awareness that that's where it's coming from. You'll know what I mean if you ever have the feeling of, I shouldn't be this upset about something. Logically, you can tell that it's not, let's say you don't get a job that you applied for, or somebody you care about doesn't return a call, and you know intellectually that there'll be another job, the person's probably just busy or something, but emotionally it really grabs you and yanks you and pulls you into that pit that I've talked about before, whether it's a pit of shame, what's wrong with me, or a pit of despair, it'll never get better, this is the end of the world. Those are the times where there's something else at work, and the more you can maybe release that, the better. The hypnosis and breath work that I did was part of that, if you remember, when I worked on shame. And the shame part, to me, relates to being afraid to make a mistake, that I'll somehow reveal that I'm not good enough, and so holding back becomes the way of coping with that. If you hold back, then you're not as likely to make mistakes, and then you can protect yourself from being rejected for not being good enough. It seems very convoluted, but it all happens in a split second. And I did have to confront some of that in the workshop, because there were moments where I contemplated holding back. I didn't want to volunteer. I didn't want to expose myself, and I was afraid certain things would come out that I had already decided should be off limits. Sure enough, there they came. But I went for it anyway. It was wonderful, a very supportive group of people, all there for their own personal growth as well. That's what made it so neat. And so there's two main parts about that I want to stress. One is what we learned about through various exercises is how to receive other people. When someone is telling you something, whether it's about you or not about you, it's about how they feel, that the ability to just listen and not either approve or disapprove, not try to give help. One of my big deals is I'm giving unsolicited advice a lot. And I apologized to someone the other day, a close friend of mine. I apologized to her for doing that because I heard myself doing it while we were talking. And she said, oh, that's all right. You've been doing that for 50 years. You can't really help it. And I'm like, yes, I can. I don't need to do that. But it's so automatic that that we practiced in this workshop. We practiced someone telling you their thoughts, their feelings, anything that came into their mind, and us just receiving, listening, without nodding supportively, without saying, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, without anything. It was a very profound experience of that the best thing you can do sometimes for someone who's sharing feelings with you is just to listen, to receive them, to say thank you for telling me how you feel. It means a lot to me that you would share that with me. And since then I've really noticed, well, two things. I've noticed how much I do that, how much I try to help, how much while someone's talking I'm like already kind of thinking about what I should suggest that they do, or what. It's just like, it's really much more obvious to me now, and I don't like doing it, and I'm trying to be aware of it, because now it feels almost like that's not nice. That's not a nice way to treat someone. You should just receive them and flow with them, and what you do say flows back to them, rather than deciding when they haven't asked for it that what they need is advice. Try that in some of your conversations and see if it doesn't make a difference, because we have good intentions, and yet they don't the intention to help someone is a very complicated thing, and it usually doesn't end up actually helping them unless they've specifically asked you. Okay, the other thing was about goals, and that was really interesting to me. When we were trying to set goals for things that we want to accomplish, and that many of us, the goals were too vague, too far off, not something you could really get a handle on right now. And I think that's very illuminating, that the more specific you can make a goal, the more close to where you are right now. You might have a far off goal, like let's say my goal would be, one of my goals is to resume playing the banjo and get to where I can comfortably play with other people in a jam. Okay, that may not seem like very significant to you, but it's highly significant to me because of my my insecurity and my feeling of self-criticism and holding back being my solution to how I keep safe. The last thing I want to do is screw up in front of a whole bunch of other people. And so that's exactly what I know I need to do. But the more specific you can make it, the more about now, the more something you can do right now, the more likely it is that you will move forward on the road, instead of sitting there saying, let me see, well, first I need to, read about the history of music. First I need to listen to other people play banjo, or I need to practice all by myself for years and years. Anyway, with that as an example, tonight I'm resuming a banjo lesson to try to work through the block that I came to with something I'm doing wrong with my fingers. And in practicing last night, I hadn't touched the banjo in months, really. And I could already feel a greater ease, a willingness to not be so critical and judgmental, and to, I don't know, to just let it happen, let it flow, let yourself do whatever you do. That's the other final thing I want to tell you, is that for all this noticing and fixing myself and wanting to change this or do more of that or less of that, at the same time I feel a much greater acceptance. I am much less critical of myself for what I notice that I do. It's kind of like, oh, there I go again, but not like, oh, I can't believe I did that. Why do I always do that? I'm just not as hard on myself as I have been. And I think that makes change a lot more possible when there's not these high stakes of, making a mistake proves that I'm like really not a good person, and, all this stupid stuff that I've believed for a long time and spent a whole lifetime. It was part of the very touching part for me of the workshop, was I'm literally in front of a small group of people sobbing about in some ways the awareness of all the ways that I've held myself back for many, many years. And it wasn't a, it was a release. It was a good kind of crying. It was kind of like, I need to just experience this and let it go. So the other reason I went to Puerto Rico was to see Tigget. If you remember, the guy I'm dating suddenly moved away, and that is where he lives, and I was able to see him, and it's fascinating how having your whole world turned upside down and your expectations completely shattered can lead to a much better situation, much more interesting, much freer to be yourself, and so that's been fascinating to me, that I've kind of adapted to a new kind of way of having a connection with somebody, that where they don't have to be there validating me all the time. They don't have to feed my ego or anything else, and that's been really cool too. So I have no idea where that's all going, but it doesn't matter. I'm just it makes me be different when I'm not trying to foresee the outcome and steer things in a particular direction. So once again, I'm just kind of happy with how everything's happening in my life. I have a few other projects that I'll be talking to you about the next time I see you, and I'm working step by step on those goals. They are all goals that are going to pretty radically change my life, and I'm kind of nervous and excited at the same time about that. So I'll be sharing all that with you. In the meantime, please notice in your own self the way, especially when you're talking with other people, the ways our needs to be helpful sometimes really either shut us down or make us start trying to control ourselves or the other person. And that really isn't, that's not what intimate communication is really about. Okay, so that's it. I will see you soon, and in the meantime, please remember to live well, laugh often, and love much, and I will catch you soon on Cruisin' with Susan. Bye now.